Hello and welcome to the Kamala Show, where we bring you interviews and conversations with technologists, entrepreneurs, filmmakers, and other news from in and around the San Francisco Bay Area. And today we're talking about the other news. Today we're talking about wine. And with me today is Theodora Lee. She's a partner at Littler Mendocino. She's a trial lawyer. And she's also a winemaker and an owner of a vineyard up in Mendocino County.
Yes.
Which is
the Yorkville Highlands of Anderson Valley.
Anderson Valley. Okay, there she completed. You're a lawyer, so so confidence is one of your hallmark, Theo, which is what you like to be known as. Theo, welcome.
Thank you very much, Kamala, for having me today.
So we are drinking some wine?
Yes, we're drinking my award-winning 2012 Theopolis Vineyards estate-grown Petite Syrah. Sunset Magazine just bestowed on it a gold medal.
Bestowed?
Yes.
Okay. So how would you describe this wine?
Well, this is, I don't know if you're familiar with Petite Syrah, but it is a Rhone varietal from
Germany.
France, the Rhone region of France. And back in France, it was called de Rief. It was brought to the United States, and the farmers started looking at the grapes and said, Petite, and they named it Petite Syrah. And Petite Syrah is a very big, bold, fruit-forward red wine. It's in a larger category than even Cabernet. It goes well with a great steak. Being a Texan, I love a good ribeye or a porterhouse, and this Petite Syrah just is lovely with it.
It can match the robustness of the...
Yeah, I make robust wines just like I'm a robust woman.
Okay, so Theo, we have some pictures of your vineyard, and so let's take a look. I think...
yes, this is the Yorkville Highlands of Anderson Valley. This is just a beautiful view of heaven, as I like to say it.
So Anderson Valley is a wine-growing region?
Anderson Valley is a wine-growing region, and the Yorkville Highlands is an AVA, American Viticultural Area, within the Yorkville Highlands, and we are in Mendocino County.
So AVA is like the French, and okay, so this is your Petite Syrah?
Yes, those are my Petite Syrah grapes, grown on the hillside at Theopolis Vineyards. And you can see this is in the, getting ready close to harvest time. This picture was taken. The grapes, as you can see, are small and tiny. You can see they're dark and purple. And if you look at the wine, it's one of the richest, inkiest, darkest wines. I call it purple to the rim.
It's almost burgundy color.
Absolutely.
And so that's again your vineyard?
That is a beautiful view looking down on the vineyard.
Okay.
And that's looking across at the vineyard from the neighbors across the road. You can see the road. And so you kind of have an aerial view.
What trees are those?
My vineyard is surrounded by fir and redwood trees. And that's what I always, and we planted Petite Syrah in particular because we lose the sun in the early evenings. And therefore, Petite Syrah, unlike Zinfandel or Cabernet, it does not need full sun throughout the whole day into the evening, and that's why we chose to plant Petite Syrah.
So that's a little bit of sun?
That's a little bit of sun. That's one of my favorite pictures because it shows the sunlight descending on the vineyard, and you've got the rows, and then you have the leaves coming toward you. So it's a very action-oriented shot of what I call my little paradise.
And that's your...
And you can
fruits
see
of your labor.
That's the fruits of my labors, the beautiful Petite Syrah grapes, almost ready for picking.
Okay. How did you go from, well, you're still a trial lawyer. How did you go from being a lawyer to a lover of wines to becoming a winemaker, which is a very, very difficult occupation or hobby or whatever word you want to pick?
Well, I would say it's definitely not a hobby. It's a job. Okay. I am a girl from Texas. I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I was fortunate enough, my parents were school teachers and wanted to ride horses as a kid. Back in the 60s, young ladies didn't put their legs up over a horse, and I cried because when I would go to my grandparents, they wouldn't let me ride horses. So my father said, I don't have the money now, but I will eventually have some money and I'll buy you a horse. And in order to do that, he bought 10 acres of land outside of Dallas. So I learned how to drive.
So these are school teachers who bought land?
Yes, who bought land. And my grandfather was a sharecropper. So
sharecropper are those who didn't own land?
Those are people who didn't own land and worked pretty much for free because they worked just enough to make the money to pay the rent to the person who owned the land, that they worked the land. So my father taught me to buy as much land as I possibly could if I ever got to that. And my daddy bought his first 10 acres and he grew some fruit and he also had cows and horses. And so I learned to drive at the age of 8 on a tractor. And so those farming roots were part of what interested me in developing a vineyard. And so when I moved to California in the 80s as an associate at Littler Mendocino, several of the partners at the firm had vineyards. And so when I would be delivering...
Vineyards in Sonoma County?
In Sonoma County, Napa County, a lot of places throughout in Northern California.
So that was their weekend getaway?
That was their weekend getaway. But as an associate working on briefs that had to be filed, we didn't have faxes and emails at that point. So I would have to drive out to Hillsburg or drive out to Napa Valley to deliver a brief to one of my partners so that they could approve and read it so we could get it filed on Monday. Well, I got to stay and have dinner and see, what it was like to live in wine country. I couldn't afford as a single woman a vineyard in Napa or inner Sonoma, but I did buy my piece of heaven in 2001 in the Yorkville Highlands of Anderson Valley.
You waited 20 years almost?
Well, I bought the land in 2001. I moved
your interest began in the 80s, I thought.
My interest began in the 80s, but it cost money to buy land in California. And as a single woman, it wasn't until 2001 that I had enough money to put down a deposit on 20 acres of property.
So you have a 20-acre property?
I have 20 acres of beautiful land, and we call it where the vineyards meet the redwoods. Because as you could see from the pictures, my vineyard is surrounded by fir and redwood trees. And that's one of the things that are very interesting. My goal was never to bottle wine. I simply wanted the farming aspect. So I took courses at University of Davis Viniculture School.
Yes, I read that you took, and it is one of the best schools for winemaking.
That is exactly right. So I took the 4 seasons of growing because as a farmer, as a Texan, as a tractor-driving woman, farming was what drew me there, and I could do a grape farming, live the wine lifestyle, yet continue to practice law. And that's what I did. I planted in 2003. I had my first...
This is sheep land or something.
Well,
I wanted to... Because you bought land, but this is not wine.
No, I did everything. I bought sheep land. And
Why?
In fact, well, that's what I could afford. There were 2 sheep on the property when we closed escrow because they couldn't catch the sheep. So my realtor's father took one as a pet, and one of the neighbors caught the other one for meat. I also inherited 8 chickens. And being a Texan, I grew up around chickens, and I kept the chickens and got their eggs, and then the foxes came and ate the chickens. But I bought the land, it had no grapes on it. So, as I said, I bought it in 2001. It took me to 2003 to actually get the land prepared for planting. I had to do soil samples, soil digs. I had to cut down some trees. I ended up on the front page of the Mendocino paper because they said, I cut these trees. I had to get a permit to do that. I had to do a lot of clearing and a lot of preparation. I had to find out what type of grape to actually plant.
So that's where your legal skills kicked in, probably.
Well, yeah, but you also, the worst client is a lawyer. So I hire experts to do the wine business because I'm an employment lawyer. I represent the nation's and the world's employers in labor and employment, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and wage and hour. So that's what I do for a living. And I love practicing law because I do a lot of training and prevention with the clients on how to do it right to keep them out of the courtroom. I go and talk about compliance with wage and hour issues, diversity, harassment prevention, all of these types of things that will keep my clients from being sued. And when they get sued, I go to trial for them and win.
Oh.
But
you're very confident. Confidence is there's no dearth of confidence.
Well, I was fortunate. My parents, being school teachers, taught me about confidence. I work hard.
Has your confidence ever been shaken?
I'm
thinking
human.
about the wine and how the rains almost destroyed.
Well, that's farming. Mother Nature is in control. As much as I like to control the outcome, the reality is why I am bottling wine is because in 2012, I had to pull the grapes at 24 bricks. That's
does
the
that mean?
sugar level.
So what does brick mean?
Brick basically means sugar.
So higher the sugar level, better, or?
Yes, generally with Petite Sirah, because it is a high tannin, big, bold wine, you generally pick that at a higher sugar or bricks level. My contract required that I pick at 27 bricks. Unfortunately, Mother Nature started raining in October, well before we got the 27 bricks. So I personally made a decision to pull those grapes, not take the risk of going through a rain, hoping that they would survive the rain and eventually meet the 27 bricks level. So we picked. We delivered 8 tons of grapes to that buyer. He rejected them. So I had 8.
This was the buyer that you had lined up.
Yes, I had a 2-year contract. He had bought the previous year, and he had a contract to buy in 2012. And he basically told me in the spring that he had bought a 75-acre Petite Sirah vineyard, and he wouldn't be buying for 2013, but he would honor the contract in 2012. But the contract required 27 bricks. Given that he already had enough Petite Sirah to meet his needs, he used that to not buy my grapes. So
as a lawyer, did you have any?
Well, unfortunately, I did not draft that contract, and therefore the lawyer kind of got taken advantage of by signing that contract. That's why I draft my contracts now, even in the wine business.
Oh.
So I have a new buyer that is buying my grapes and bottling it and loving it, and I continue to bottle. So my 2013 Petite Sirah will be coming out, and that was planned. This was not.
This is 2012.
2012.
Which is what we are drinking here.
Correct. But even despite the fact that this was not planned, and I ended up bartering to get this done. Because
bartering in what way?
Bartering.
Yeah, in what way? I mean, you didn't pay, but there was
basically what
exchange.
happened is when I found a place to do the custom crushers. You have to do that within 24 hours.
Oh.
And that creates the juice. Then I had to go out and do barrel selection, because part of winemaking is French oak barrels, and I like to use neutral French oak barrels, because I only make my wines in French oak barrels.
Why?
Because of the flavor.
Oh,
and
okay.
you want to create a rich wine, and the barrel is so important. But you want it to be neutral so that it gets the flavor of the grape.
Okay.
Now, once I got it crushed, I asked him how much money it was going to cost to make the wine, and I fell out of my seat. Like I said, I am an employment lawyer.
And you're a single lady.
And I'm a single lady. I don't have that kind of money. So I then searched out friends who were winemakers and vintners who actually had winemaking facilities, and I found a winemaker who would, in exchange for taking half of my fruit to blend with the Zinfandel, gave me the labor toward making the wine. And that was what I did to barter. Now I paid for the actual chemistry, I paid for the bottles, the caps, and all of the hard costs, but wine,
he just blended the wine for you. He just made the wine for you.
He made the wine, and I want to make sure it's not a blend, because this is 100% Petite Sirah. My rosé of Petite Sirah is 100%.
So can we take a look at your rosé?
Yes, the rosé, in fact.
That's also Petite Sirah?
That's a rosé of Petite Sirah. So let me just show you this dark color. Most rosés are more pink. This is ruby.
Yeah.
And the reason this is ruby is because it is made from the Petite Sirah grape. Petite Sirah, as I said, is one of the...
It's a little bit dry?
All of my wines are dry.
Okay.
This is a brilliant dry rosé. If you're thinking about white Zinfandels, I can't satisfy your palate. If you want a sweet wine, Theopolis Vineyards can't satisfy your palate. But this is a rosé, the fragrance of rose petals. You have a little green apple in there. It has a clean, bright, nice acidity. This is a really unique rosé. Most people make their rosés from Pinot Noir grapes because they're so light.
And what about this?
You're talking about the Symphony. The Symphony is a really rare grape. As you may recall, when I was bottling my 2012 Petite, that's all I had. But I needed to bottle a white wine. And since Petite is not your everyday wine either, I wanted to bottle something unique. And Symphony is a grape. It is a crossing between Muscat and Grenache Grenache. It was created by Professor...
Muscat of Alexandria.
Yes, Muscat of Alexandria.
Because I want to end with your with your labeling. Yeah.
And so long story short is my winemaker actually had Symphony grapes. He has the only Symphony vineyard in all of Mendocino County, and there are only 1,000 acres of Symphony planted in the country. So it's very rare. Very few wineries actually bottle this, and most of the people who bottle it do an off-dry version. I do a completely dry version. It's very aromatic, and it is peaches and mango flavors.
Mango?
Yeah, I mean the flavor. I mean they're not. It's grapes, but the flavor that is created from this particular grape boasts notes of mango and peaches, and it's a refreshingly brilliant wine. And the ladies who lunch call it champagne without the bubbles.
Got you. Yes, it is. It's a very fresh wine. Now, my last question. As the Theopatra of Theopolis Vineyard, you have this very Egyptian theme going on here.
Yes, well, that's people ask me that a lot. My name is Theodora, which is also gift of God. When I pledged Delta Sigma Theta sorority, a Greek sorority back at Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, my line name was Theopolis. And that's how I came up with the name Theopolis Vineyards.
And here I thought polis means a city or a town.
Well, no,
Greek.
but Theopolis means gift of God, just like Theodora. Then, when I was trying to come up with a label design, people saw me on the tractor and started calling me Theopatra, Queen of the Vineyard. And so as I sat down with my graphic artist to try to come up with a label, he's like, Theopatra, why don't we make your label
Cleopatra.
Theopatra, in the image of Cleopatra.
So that's what it is.
That's exactly what it is. Just like the Greek Cleopatra went into Egypt and took over. I am Theopatra, and I'm going to take the wine business by storm.
So you're first taking over Mendocino County.
And then we'll
County by county.
County by county.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. We could have spoken for a longer time because there is so much that we could talk about. But Theo, thank you for stopping by. We didn't even get to talk about all the different things you do. You're on the boards of YMCA.
Correct.
And the board of...
the Bay Area Legal Aid.
Yes.
And I also, my father's, to whom much is given, much is expected. So you always have to give back to your community. And the youth of this country are in need of us to help them move into the next stage of their lives. And so I serve on these boards because it's important to give back.
So I don't know how you find the time to do everything.
I just don't sleep.
Really?
Life is too exciting for sleeping.
Theo, I think I should take a leaf out of your book. Life is indeed too exciting. And thank you for stopping by and sharing the wine and your winemaking story with us.
Thank you so much, Kamala, for having me. It's been wonderful.
And thank you for watching. If you missed any of our shows, you can watch them on our YouTube channel. We'll be back again next week with another show. Until then, goodbye and cheers.
Cheers.
To all of you.